Welcome to 5 Minute Bible, your daily guide for your daily reading. Today's March the 29th, and we'll be looking at Joshua 22 through 24. Now today we come to the conclusion of the book of Joshua. The land has been conquered, the inheritance has been distributed, and now Joshua gathers the people for the final instructions. And Joshua 22 through 24 is about unity and remembrance and covenant renewal. Because the question is no longer whether God has been faithful, the question is whether the people are going to remain faithful to him. Joshua 22 begins with the eastern tribes of Reuben, Gad, and the half-tribe of Manasseh returning to the land after helping their brothers conquer Canaan. But before leaving, they built a very large altar near the Jordan River, and the rest of Israel fears that this is an act of rebellion against Yahweh. But the tribes of Reuben and Gad and the half-tribe of Manasseh, they clarify their intention. The altar is not for sacrifices, but it's a witness. It's a reminder that they belong to the same covenant community, even though they're not living inside the typical borders of Canaan. And they're doing this as a kind of symbol of unity, that we are together, that we belong to you and you belong to us. That's what the altar was for. Then Joshua 23 records Joshua's final charge to the leaders of Israel. He reminds them that God has fought for them and warns them not to turn toward the remaining nations or their gods. The same covenant that brought blessing is going to bring consequences if they abandon Yahweh. Then Joshua 24 gathers the entire nation at Shechem for a covenant renewal ceremony. Joshua recounts God's work from Abraham all the way to the present, showing that Israel's story is entirely the result of God's grace. Then he calls the people to a decision. Choose this day whom you will serve. And the people respond by affirming their covenant to the Lord. And then Joshua establishes a covenant by setting up stones as a witness. And soon after, his life comes to an end. So as you read today, I want you to ask the following question. After receiving the promises of God, will we remain faithful to the God who gave them? And Joshua 22 through 24 shows that inheritance must be followed by ongoing covenant loyalty. And in that way, the central pattern in these chapters is faithfulness comes after fulfillment. God has done everything that he's promised. The land is theirs. The enemies have been subdued. Now the danger shifts, and the greatest threat is no longer external opposition from armies and nations, but the internal drift of the human heart that finds itself at odds with God. And this pattern speaks directly to us today because it is possible for us to experience God's faithfulness and still gradually drift away from him. Joshua understands this, which is why his final words are not about strategy or conquest, but about loyalty. The future of Israel will depend on whether or not they serve the Lord. And in that way, Joshua 22 through 24 points ultimately to Jesus. Joshua calls the people to choose whom they will serve, but the history of Israel shows that human resolve alone is not enough to sustain them in covenant faithfulness. But in that way, Christ comes as the greater Joshua, who not only leads his people into inheritance, but he secures their faithfulness through a new and better covenant. Where Israel's commitment falters, Christ establishes a people whose hearts are transformed by grace. The call to choose this day finds its ultimate fulfillment in the work of Christ, who enables his people to love God and to serve him forever with renewed, regenerated hearts by the power of the Spirit of God. So as you read Joshua 22 through 24, and as you finish out the book of Joshua today, I want you to feel the weight of his final words. The land has been given, the promises have been fulfilled, and tomorrow we're going to begin the book of Judges, and we're going to see exactly what happens to the people who say that they are going to follow in covenant with God, and yet a generation rises who does not remember God at all. But with that, read your Bible carefully, devotionally, and joyfully, and may the Lord use his word to sanctify you completely, and we will continue our journey tomorrow. God bless you.